Good evening, I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. Prime Minister Frondell Stewart has showered the public service with praise, saying its continued excellence has helped Barbados to make greater leaps forward. He was delivering the feature address at a celebratory luncheon at Lion Castle Polo Pavilion. Mr. Stewart said while public servants should pay due attention to the need for expediting their decision-making, they should not sacrifice the standards that made Barbados a great nation.
We're here without fear of contradiction, and certainly with an immeasurable pride that they held aloft all those standards which we have held dear in the public service of Barbados. And whatever they were called upon to do, they made sure that they did not sacrifice a commitment to excellence and the pursuit of high standards to any resort to short-term expedience.
The honorees were former Permanent Secretaries Antoinette Williams, Diane Campbell, Sonja Welch, Tennyson Springer, Patson Allen, and Fillmore Best, along with Chief Technical Officers Frank Thornhill and Nicholas Lovell. The Prime Minister added that he continued to benefit greatly from the contributions being made to the country by present Permanent Secretaries and officers of related grade.
I am quite impressed by the quality of the work you do in your various departments, and I say this quite honestly because when I hear people, particularly people from the private sector, to use a good old Barbadian term, crying down the public service and giving the impression that all the problems in Barbados can be traced to an inefficient public service, I have to stand up and to make it known that that is not my experience.
Commerce Minister Donville Innes is not convinced that all is well within the Barbados Labour Party. Speaking at the launch of the St. James Central Constituency Office, Mr. Innes said there are still several unresolved issues between members of the party, including matters that are before the court. Mr. Innes, who is seeking to be re-elected to the neighboring St. James South seat, adds that despite what detractors may say, the Democratic Labour Party has worked hard for Barbados.
I want Barbadians to stop being so emotional, to start focusing on the realities of this country. This Democratic Labour Party has since 1961 done the most to transform Barbados from a village into a nation. When I look at what we've done for women in this country in terms of giving them the rights, what we've done in terms of acknowledging families, what we've done in terms of creating sustaining National Insurance Board, and all these things we've done, education, transform Barbados from being a village to a nation. People now want to focus on just the last 10 years.
And the Democratic Labour Party candidate for St. James Central constituency is concerned about the length of time it takes for business transactions to be completed in Barbados. But George Connolly, a business executive, has a strategy which he says can cut the process down to as few as 2 weeks to complete land transactions, for example. He was speaking at the opening of his constituency office at Sunset Crest in St. James. Mr. Connolly says Barbados has the infrastructure already built through town planning, corporate affairs, and other agencies.
When you put a plan forward, they're all algorithm-based. Either you're in the correct zone, you have the correct height, you've got the correct path, all of the nodes, as we call them in coding, are available immediately. So a human, if we aggregate the data, may take a week to do it. A computer system can do it in 30 seconds. The problem that we have is bringing all these agencies together to make this thing happen.
Well, the opposition leader has issued a stern warning to government to forget any plans to sell abandoned Clico lands anytime soon. Instead, Mia Motley has called on the ruling Democratic Labour Party to disclose its plans for the thousands of acres of land.
And I pray that it will not be sold under the shadow of a parliament that is closed down between now and election day. Because if it is, mark my word, action will be taken to recover the assets of the people of Barbados. Because the people of Barbados cannot guarantee bonds and not get the assets under which those bonds are related.
Ms. Motley was speaking during the opening of the constituency office for St. John hopeful Charles Griffith. She was very critical of the state of the roads in St. John, even suggesting that if something was not done, another situation similar to what occurred in Whitehill was bound to happen again.
And what makes it worse is that this government has known for some time that throughout the whole of the Scotland district and throughout St. John and other parts of Barbados, there is significant movement of the land, and that we have to work and spend money to stabilize it. And if we don't do that and treat it as a priority, what has happened to the people of Whitehill will only be one such community on the east coast of this country.
Meanwhile, candidate Charles Griffith says he wants to be the voice of the voiceless.
Whenever the bell is rung, I will be the next representative in St. John. And it is at that time that development will really come to St. John. We have tons of idle land in St. John and nobody is working the land. We don't have a structured program for sports in St. John. We don't have a cultural presence in St. John, but it will come. Because as you heard mentioned before, change will come to St. John. And this toss, home drums will beat first.
The Blackman and Gollop Primary School continues to be plagued by cowage problems, which have resulted in the school being closed for the remainder of this week. And the Parent Teachers Association wants something to be done immediately to rectify the situation. It forced the PTA to hold an emergency meeting last evening at the Staple Grove Institution. President of the PTA, Lester King, says parents made it clear that something must be done about the problem which raises its head every year around this time.
This has been going on from early February, and yes, it's something that happens every year, but this is the worst time, and teaching time has been lost, and we don't know how, especially the class 3s and 4s now, they're going to catch up. The ministry, not necessarily only education, but all of them seem to be dragging their feet, because closing the school, like today, you closed the school yesterday and today is Tuesday and no activity, no sort of activity is going on. Now, I mean, it's dry now and you should be cleaning up, you should be debushing, you should be burning, you should be doing whatever to have school reopen next week. But I don't know, they seem to be just dragging their feet.
Mr. King, who was joined by members of his executive, says the PTA delivered a letter to the relevant authorities today outlining their concerns. He says they have not been informed of any alternative arrangements for the Class 4 students who are preparing for the Common Entrance examination.
Very unfortunate for the Class 4s because Common Entrance is around the corner and adequate time now for them to catch up. I mean, yes, we have some really competent teachers who bend over backwards, who have been teaching in some untrying times, never walking off the job, as was stated in another section of the media, and they're just trying, but in this environment, how much can they give? It's a very hard thing for them.
Well, in a statement this evening, the Ministry of Education has advised of a new location for Class 4 pupils of the Blackman and Gollop Primary School. They are to report to classes at the Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute of Technology in Wildy from tomorrow. Parents and pupils are asked to enter from the entrance nearest to the Caribbean Development Bank instead of the main entrance. They will be met by the principal and Class 4 teachers on arrival. School meals will be provided, as usual, for the pupils at the new temporary location. The rest of the pupils from Class 3 and under will remain at home as the school remains closed for the remainder of the week. This is to allow for the burning and removal of cowage from a nearby lot, as well as the industrial cleaning of the school. Barbadians have nothing to fear from the alert level being raised from the underwater volcano Kikumjeni, located off Grenada. The level was raised from yellow to orange. An orange alert for the volcano means that there are highly elevated levels of seismic and/or fumarolic activity or other unusual activity. Director of the Department of Emergency Management, Carrie Hines, is assuring that her agency was closely monitoring the situation. Her counterpart at the Trinidad and Tobago-based Seismic Research Center of the University of the West Indies, Professor Richard Robertson, is telling Barbados activity at Kikum-Jenny is likely to be localized.
We don't think, even so, that given where its current configuration and the kind of size of eruption it has had, certainly within the recent times, and the kind of pattern it has, we don't think a tsunami is very likely. So that's not something that people should worry about. And so that if there's anybody transmitting messages about tsunami warning and watches, that is currently not in the case. What is happening now is that you have a lot of earthquakes associated with it. It's possible that people in northern Grenada and Carriacou may feel some of the earthquakes, and because of the chance of an eruption, there's an exclusion zone around the volcano itself. So marine traffic, fishermen, and people who go between Grenada and Carriacou, there's an area that they should avoid when they're moving in those areas. Other than that, it's just a matter of being alert, listening to the news, making sure you know what's happening, and if anything changes, be able to respond to that.
Professor Robertson says the activity at Kikum-Jenny is the normal process for such active volcanoes, which many of our islands have formed.
What that means is a normal volcanic process where volcanoes that are like Kikum-Jenny, that are quite live, they have eruptions from time to time. Now, given what we understand of Kikum-Jenny's morphology, you know, its shape, where it is, what kind of eruptions it has, we think the activity that you're having now could lead to some sort of eruption in the, and that's why the elevated activity is suggesting that you could have some eruption in the short term rather than the longer term. I mean, there's a possibility that it will just simply go back quiet, but that's possible.
All right, we'll take a short break here and come back with more news. As the ideology of nationalism appears to be spreading across the globe, Commonwealth countries are being reminded of the possibilities of unity despite differences. This was one of the key messages from Queen Elizabeth II, who is also head of the Commonwealth. This year's celebrations were held under the theme, Towards a Common Future. Our Rianne Phillips tells us more about the local Commonwealth Day celebrations.
On March 12 this year, the 2.4 billion people in the Commonwealth countries in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, the Americas, the Pacific, and Europe all observed Commonwealth Day. Across the globe, it was celebrated in many different ways with flag-raising ceremonies and church services. Here in Barbados, scores of school children and members of the Diplomatic Corps gathered at the St. Patrick's Cathedral for a multi-faith service. While delivering the Queen's Commonwealth Day message, Governor-General Dame Sandra Mason said the 53-member group has always promoted unity.
There is a very special value in the insights we gain through the Commonwealth connection. Shared inheritances help us overcome difference, so that diversity is a cause for celebration rather than division. We shall see this in the action at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, which takes place in the United Kingdom next month, bringing together young people, business and civil society from across the Commonwealth.
As nationalism appears to be resurfacing across the globe, the Commonwealth has been identified as a key player to educate the youth.
What nationalism teaches goes against the very grain of what the Commonwealth embraces. And so I urge us, as citizens of the Commonwealth and members of the Royal Commonwealth Society, to be even more resolute in our efforts to transmit the true meanings of democracy and freedom of speech and justice and love to the young people whom we've been called to serve throughout the world.
The service included readings from different denominations and performances from several schools such as Parkinson, Ann Hill, and the St. Patrick's Roman Catholic School. It ended with a parade from the cathedral to the Parliament buildings, where the flags of the 53 member states were raised. Commonwealth Day was previously known as Empire Day and was first celebrated in 1902. Rianne Phillips, Cbc News.
Thank you, Rianne. Well, as the spotlight continues to shine on the plight of the disabled during the month of March, there's an appeal for more people to join an organization created to help members of that vulnerable community. It comes from Public Relations Officer of the Friends of the Differently Abled Group, Trevor Lashley.
Friends of the Disabled want people to come and join. We want people to come and join us because each and every day we don't know what might happen to one of us today or tomorrow, but we want people to come and join us and help us with the differently able.
Mr. Lashley made the comments as the group, which currently has 17 members, made a presentation to a member of the disabled community, John Wood. Mr. Wood, who was overcome with emotion and thanked the organization for the hamper, the contents of which he plans to share with others in need. President Patrick Ford says the help he received from people in the past has inspired him to help others.
It's good when we can give back to those like us who are not fortunate like us, and it's a privilege because like, even myself in a wheelchair, it's good to recognize each other. We are a brother keeper. We should be all a brother keeper. So this evening, is in behalf of the board and the group, the Friends of the Differently Able, I present a small token appreciation to you of this hamper to you, and I hope it will do you well and bring comfort to you.
Pretty sad story now. 74-year-old Luenda McCree is homeless tonight after she was evicted from her Titchburn home this morning. CBC's cameras were able to capture marshals carrying out the court order on behalf of a banking institution to have Ms. McCree and her belongings removed. Chairman of the National Assistance Board, Reverend Dr. David Durant, was on hand. He says it was a family matter that is no fault of Ms. McCree. He said it was heartbreaking to watch and the board will do its best to relocate her.
There's nothing we can do about it but provide help for this elderly lady. And that's what we have prepared. And her possessions, we have rented a container to make sure all her possessions don't go to the dump, because that's what they will do. Carry them to the dump and just dump them. We still would like her to have some possessions, something of sentimental value to hold on to. So we will store the valuables in a container for her, and we will relocate her to one of our facilities that we have prepared.
Well, apart from providing shelter for Ms. McCree, Reverend Durant says the board will also provide medical attention and counseling.
This calls for counseling now to help her deal with the aftermath of losing your dwelling place. Some way that you've worked hard and built, and you built it to make sure you relax comfortably in your old age. All right? You work all your life, and then it is taken away from you. It's not an easy thing for an elderly person to take. It can interfere with your heart, it can interfere, if you have any other ailment, it can agitate, and it can bring a lot of pressure on you mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. So that is my greatest concern.
The Eunice Gibson Men's Health Association wants to get more men interested in their health. President Jack Martindale says that group meets every second Monday to discuss a range of topics relating to the entire body.
Your body. We start with the head. Somebody come and talk about your eyes. Another person may come and talk about your stomach. Somebody may come and talk about your heart, and the man's thing. No, we're men. What's the man's thing? The prostate. And we have presentations on different topics. And that is what is happening tonight. But we're having a nutritionist tonight talking about foods.
Acting Health Promotion Officer Donna Barker was one of the presenters at last night's meeting. She said many people still need to reduce the amount of salt in their diets.
Less than half of a teaspoon of salt is enough, or more than enough, of what you would want in a day. And the fact that a lot of the things that you eat throughout the day will have salt in them, so therefore you don't need to add extra salt. You don't need to cook necessarily with the pigtail and the salt meat. That a lot of things that we use have salt in them, and we don't need as much salt as we feel that we should.
After the break, we'll check in with our regional neighbors. The votes are being counted, and Grenadians and those living in Carriacou and Petit Martinique are waiting for the results. The election was a straight fight between the ruling New National Party, led by 71-year-old Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, and the National Democratic Congress, led by Nazim Burke. The election is an historic one for Prime Minister Mitchell, who is seeking his 5th term in office. CBC spoke with the editor of the Grenada Today, George Worm, earlier today, and he said voter turnout was high.
Whenever there is a high turnout, that the people voting for change. That's the general feeling. The feeling is that if there's a low turnout, the incumbent, would remain. Now, I am not going to say that because there was a high turnout this morning, meaning overall that there's a high turnout.
Mr. Worm says the decision by the Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, to appear on a radio station didn't go down well with some.
Some people are a bit upset because they find he was campaigning. But, if he gets an opportunity and based on the question you ask him, maybe it is right to do his campaigning based on the question that I said. Now, what the Prime Minister is saying, that he's confident of literally almost a clean sweep. That's what he was saying. He was saying that his candidates in some areas, the margin of victory is going to be very wide for his candidates. That is basically what he was saying.
And of course, as Prime Minister Keith Mitchell. In St. Lucia, frustrated constituents in Castries Central resorted to hanging effigies of their parliamentary representative, Sarah Flood Bobrin, at 2 locations in a show of dissatisfaction with the level of representation. Mrs. Flood Bobrin is being called on by residents of her constituency to fulfill her 2016 election campaign promises. We hear more in this HTS report.
Wilton's Yard Youth want MP Castries Central, Sarah Flood Bobre, to deliver on employment promises. On Monday, a group of citizens who claim they are disgruntled voters took to the streets and staged a mock hanging of the MP.
We vote for the woman, we campaign, we rally, we do all kind of things, and right now we've seen the same set of people that was voting against us. Them people are getting all the work and we are getting nothing, guys. You should get on, guys. One time for election, guys, you was in the graveyard first every day. You should get every day you playing with our friend. Things go get better, we go get this, we go get that. Man. And look all now there, guys, we just did the same way, guys. You're like giving us no work, no nothing. Every day we have to come in your office and like it's we begging for work. We can't take it again, guys. Yeah, that is probably sure. We can't take it again. Right?
The residents claim Minister Bobre during the 2016 election promised job opportunities for the youth. The pledge, they assert, was also made during a recent independence rally.
The fellas tired of false promises, you check it. Now, the Wilton's Yard is separating in different pieces. Now, one said getting, one said they're getting nothing. One said getting, one said they're getting nothing. Now, the fellas frustrated that. We want to work too. We wanted to give one set and she giving the next set. One set eating, the next set eating. So one set belly full in, next set hungry. That's how I seen it. That's how I seen it.
While the disaffected residents have expressed disappointment in their duly elected MP, they gave the mayor of Castries, Peterson Francis, the nod of approval for his management of the capital city.
He never came back to meet with us or to see us or to represent us. For instance, we have a multi-purpose court, as you could see. Only tennis are playing on the court. We have so many young footballers, talented little boys and big girls and little girls playing, they're well talented. We're going to have nobody playing football on the court. Tennis alone, white people alone are coming on the court and playing. Sarah Flood, she have to go. She have to go and make way for the mayor because it looks like it's the mayor that doing everything in Central. So she have to go.
Some of the angry residents also expressed disappointment with the incumbent.
Remove Chasney because Chasney not for the poor. It's only for the rich, as you could see.
Sarah Flood Bobre was first elected the Member of Parliament for Castries Central in 1997. She fell out with the ruling SLP in 2004 and lost the seat to Richard Frederick in a 2006 by-election. She was elected Castries Central MP for the second time after winning the seat on a United Workers' Party ticket in 2006.
In Trinidad and Tobago, Prisons Commissioner Gerard Wilson says he is more prepared to make prisoner transfers and adjustments as is required. Now the anti-gang bill has been passed. The bill was unanimously passed with all 37 parliamentarians voting in favor of the bill with the exception of 4 absent members.
Commissioner of Prisons Gerard Wilson said the nation's penal institutions are under restructuring to better assist inmates as well to tackle the issues of gang violence. In recent times, there have been fights between warring gang members incarcerated for various offences. This, the Commissioner said, will be addressed by a special unit he has established to deal with this problem.
Doing some sanitizing because we have had inmates in high-risk areas, and when we looked at the level of risk, there wasn't really any, and some of them may have had threats 3-4 years ago, but it's still there and just biding time.
And on the recently passed anti-gang bill, Wilson said this will surely aid in this regard.
With the passing of the anti-gang legislation, we could fit persons. We don't have to be campaign. We could fit persons into their respective places quite easily.
The Anti-Gang Bill 2018 was unanimously passed in the lower house with a vote of 37 for and none against on Friday evening.
This new unit that I formed, right, because of being proactive, with the passing of this anti-gang legislation, I'm better prepared now to fit persons into respective places.
The bill makes it an offence to be a member of a gang, to be in possession of a bulletproof vest, to participate in or contribute to the activities of a gang, to support or invite support for a gang, or to harm or conceal gang members or recruit persons to a gang.
In Ghana, an immigration officer and a Campbellville resident were killed in a motorcycle accident at the weekend. Javon Vickery has this story.
24-year-old Stanley Jr. King of Campbellville and pillion rider 25-year-old Moeva Chase of Thomas Street, Kitty were both killed following an accident on the Houston Public Road, East Bank, Demerara. Police were told that King was proceeding south along the western carriageway of the road, allegedly at a fast pace, while negotiating a slight turn when he lost control and slammed into a median. King was pronounced dead on arrival, while Chase succumbed to her injuries at the Georgetown Public Hospital. The sister of King, Tamara Carter, told Nightly News that while her brother had been riding for several years, he's normally cautious.
It's just about a year that he actually got the bike. So he can handle himself. He's been riding before, but his personal bike, he just got it roughly in 1 year.
A year?
Yeah.
Has he ever been in an accident before?
No accidents, none.
Chase's family were reluctant to speak on camera on the issue, but related that on the night of the incident she was ill and had tucked in early. Relatives say that Chase was picked up by another motorcyclist and not King, which is reported in some sections of the press.
A glimpse into the world of sports is just ahead, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Anti-doping rule violations number 5. Doping is defined as the tampering with any part of the drug testing process. This fact is brought to you compliments the National Anti-Doping Commission.